Dwarves have once again been brought to bear against the forces of evil, but today they are not alone. They are joined by the marksmen of Dale and the forces of Gondor in this massive 4 vs 4 showdown of good versus evil. Hey, how's it going, guys, and welcome back to another online battle for Total War Rise of Mordor. This one was played by myself and hosted in my Discord, so if you guys want to be a part of these massive online battles, then be sure to join my Discord. The link is just down below in the description. I am planning on trying to host, towards 2 to 3 battles every single week on a variety of games such as Warhammer, Attila, Rome 2, etc, with all mods you can imagine. So if you're looking for more people to play with, then join the Discord and just keep an eye out for a notification letting you know we are hosting. But back to the battle at hand. So today I'll go ahead and let the game play itself out. Yeah, we have a pretty interesting engagement, close to 20,000 soldiers on the field of battle. We've got 2 dwarven forces in the center, which are going to be holding firm against the oncoming hordes. And then on the right hand side, we do have a force from Dale that's going to be moving through the forest itself and looking to take on their opponents. And then we also have a force from Gondor, which is kind of a bit situated a lot further away from our formation. Both sides have kind of formed up, not intentionally, in a formation where they've kind of left one flank pretty exposed. We've left our left flank exposed, and our opponents on the evil side of things have kind of left this flank relatively exposed as well. I mean, I guess not so much compared to us, but they have. And then obviously on the other side of things, we have the Easterlings with their heavy Loci warriors and their macemen, which are going to be, ripping through our heavily armored troops. They have some really nice cavalry, and also I actually like the look. These guys do look very different from the rest of the Easterlings, but I really like their eastern feel, and their shields are super cool. We've got these guys back there with some of the Dunlands. Then obviously in the center we have a force from Dunland and also an Isengard. So the Isengard and Dunland armies are going to be relatively close together. The Hillmen and the warriors ready to fight, obviously the Urukai as well. And then on the far right hand side we do have an army from Mordor, cladded in their newly installed Uruk warriors. Again, looking very clean. A very nice addition is more and more Isengard factions, and obviously also the addition to the Mordor roster as well is always awesome indeed. So let's just jump ahead until this battle does kick off, and let me tell you, this one does get off to a pretty hectic start, and it continues the whole way through. Okay, so the battle is kicking off. Our battle lines are advancing forward towards the evil filth, and I think our main objective here was to try and secure this hill in the center of the battlefield and then push forward. As well as that, you can see the gap between the far left army and the rest of the forces is quite separate, so we wanted to try and exploit that as best as we could, and we've kind of set up and devised a pretty interesting strategy. Basically what we're going to do, you can kind of see it starting to form now, is basically the player to my right is going to form up like a sideward shield to kind of curve our flank in, and then these 2 factions, or these 2 players, are going to try and 2v1 this guy, whilst me and my ally on the left hand side hold the center, and we basically just try and bog them down in the woods so that these guys have enough time to wrap around and finish up the battle. That was kind of the the strategy behind that. I'm not sure if it's going to pay off. You guys will have to find out. Well, I know if it pays off or not because I've played in this battle, but right now we're actually going to be getting a bit of a skirmish in the woodland area. Some of the orc rabble, the 260 orc unit, which is utter crap, but they can cause nuisances like this, catching units off guard. And a unit of actual Citadel Guard is going to be engaging them. This is going to be child's play for the Citadel Guard right now. But again, it's nuisances. It's pushing back the rest of the archer line. So the archers aren't shooting, but the infantry, have to go ahead and push up. They have to get tired and get exhausted. I'm going to be sending over a unit of my cavalry here to help out in this fight. I think the quicker we deal with this orc rabble and send it from our ranks, the better it will be, because then we can form up and really focus on the proper enemy. Because the orc rabble are, they're so cheap that they're basically, this is their own goal, and if they get killed like this, then it's probably still worth to bring them because of the disruption they caused. So I've gone ahead and committed both my cavalry units over here. We also have a unit of vassal Southern Lancers as well, so the Haradrim vassal horses, which are supporting the Mordor roster, are also looking to engage my merchant guard of the Dwarves. So I'm actually pretty happy about this because they've gone ahead and committed a unit of their cavalry, which we can now kind of exploit quite usefully, because I've also got a unit, I've got 2 of my horses here, so I can basically wrap around. But one thing I am a little bit worried about in this engagement right now though is the amount of arrow fire coming in. You know, I've got both of my horses here, and you know, taking a lot of missile fire is never really a great idea because it's a quick way of melting your own horses. I am however going to continue on moving my cavalry, looking to charge the front lines, and if I can, maybe get onto some of these Mordor or rabble bowmen. Over on the other side though, we do have our kind of plan being thrown into action. We have the forces of the Erebor, Axeman, the player next to me, clashing in against the Dunland forces, and soon to be onto the Easterlings. We're really trying to cut this player off from the rest of his allies so we can 2v1 this guy, the Easterling player, and then deal with the other 3 players. But the kind of question is, the main thing is, will we hold in the center? Will we hold in the forest? Because they could quite easily do exactly what we're doing to them over in the forest itself, so it's always going to be a hard task. You can also see that I have managed to get some of my cavalry off into the Orc bow rabble, so I'm hopefully going to minimize their arrows coming in, and that's going to help kind of push forward our flank on that. And again, we're just trying to delay them as much as possible. We're not looking for a huge engagement to smash through them because, as you can see, they've got a lot of troops in the center. We're really looking to try and crush this flank and then move around. Numbers wise, you can see that they do actually have 11,000 soldiers. They started off with almost 12,000, whereas us good factions only had 7,700. So yeah, we started off outnumbered pretty heavily. The Dalian forces have also engaged quite handedly in the forest, and they're using their numbers quite effectively because we've got basically 1.5 players ganging up on the Easterling player. You can see that we're getting outflanks, and the Dale player is allowed to go ahead and commit more of his units around here. We obviously have more of the Dale bowmen as well, taking up refuge in the forest so they can go ahead and duke it out with the bow cavalry of the Easterlings. And again, I love the look of these Easterlings. They're not as like traditional as maybe we're used to from the movie, but they look so cool. Look at them. This type of horse armor is amazing, and I love the Easterling. They still have like that Easterling flair of these really cool kind of like arm protection. They look amazing. And they are actually going to be pushing forward to engage the forces in the forest, which they do need to be kind of careful of, as more and more lines do come in. We even obviously have some more marksmen of Dale as well. They're the elite bowmen of the Dalian forces here, just pushing in and hitting away the back lines. You know, Dale is definitely one of the stronger factions indeed when it comes to range play. So over on the left hand side, to kind of quickly go back, you can see that my cavalry charges were pretty successful against the Mordor bow rabble, sending them back, cutting them down in half, which is nice. And now my cavalry is going to pull out, but I have taken quite a few casualties, so maybe that wasn't completely worth it. As well as that, my Erebor crossbowmen are shooting, but they're having a hard time of like angling their projectiles, and we are getting hit pretty hard. I think the Erebor crossbowmen have a really hard time of like they have to shoot straight, which isn't necessarily, I guess it's kind of how they work, but yeah, maybe gameplay wise is not that great. So I'm going to continue to move up my formation and basically just protect my crossbows for a little bit more, and the forces of evil are going to do exactly the same. You can see that's where I want to get to. And I mean, I'm honestly not that scared of engaging the forces of Isengard and Dunland. Obviously, you know, I've got an elite Dwarven force. The Dwarves are pretty elite, so engaging these kind of like hillmen shouldn't really be a hard task. And there you go. The lines have clashed now as shields and weapons clash against one another. One thing I am kind of scared of is being overwhelmed, being outmaneuvered, then finding gaps through my battle lines, because, you know, the dwarfs, I don't really have a lot, right? I have a very kind of elite small force, and, you know, they have a lot of soldiers in reserve. They can commit to where they need to. So, you know, kind of my biggest worry here is being overrun and, you know, surrounded and kind of killed, because units do die very quickly. Speaking of which, I have a unit of my Grimhammer's Silver Experience, the strongest unit the dwarfs have to offer, and, you know, they're playing a pivotal role in this engagement. They've come around the flank of these hillmen, and they're going to come clashing in with pure fury and thunder. You know, this is exactly what they're designed to do, is coming in the side with their huge warhammers and just taking apart infantry. So I'm super happy we managed to get a great charge off from them. Obviously, they're going to leave themselves pretty vulnerable to missile fire coming in and hitting them, but I think for the most part they should quite easily clean up along this front line. We do, however, get quickly outmatched, though, as the forces of the Blood Avengers of the Dunland forces. Even though they look like Uruks, they're kind of just been given armor from Isengard, are being thrown up. I get a few crossbow bolts in, and I'm also moving my cavalry over here, but the dwarfs do form up as best as they can. But these Blood Avengers will cut through them, as they are not in shield wall, unfortunately. Over on the right hand side of the battle, you can see things are going well for us. We kind of, are achieving our battle plan. We have Dale cavalry causing havoc in the archer line. Our forces are moving around, catching more of these horses. We're breaking their front line bit by bit, and our kind of like angled line of troops right here are holding back our opponents. However, the same can be said for our opponents. They are doing a great job in the forest, in the dense forest. The forces of Mordor are going in against the Gondorians. And even these halberds are having a hard time against the Uruks from the front, because they've done a great job of surrounding our forces on this left-hand side. The axes are just ripping through the shields of the Citadel Guard, and especially against the halberds, which obviously will just melt when fully surrounded. And obviously, it's only a matter of time they continue to push round. And this is bad, obviously, because, once they clear this up, they can then come around my flank. And I only really have a couple units left in reserve. Besides my crossbowmen, if any cavalry makes their way through the battle lines, I'm kind of screwed. And seeing that, I'm going to go ahead and commit my last unit of horses over to this fight, as well as an extra unit of spearmen. I kind of realised that I need to go ahead and at least try and slow these guys down as much as possible, because the longer we leave it, the worse it's going to be. If we can just delay this force a little bit more, and I think by committing a unit of my spears over here, I might achieve that, then that will hopefully bide us enough time over on this right hand side, because as you can see, things are looking good for us. We've basically completely broken the center now, wide open, so we can advance more soldiers forward. You can see more Grimhammers now being committed to the fight against the elite cavalry of the Easterlings. The Dalian swordsmen are making great progress in the far reaches of the camera. And as soon as that Eastling general goes down, that'll spell great news for us. And then obviously they can start to continue to wrap around. The bowmen are formed up. However, they're going to leave themselves pretty vulnerable unless these horses can arrive in time. And it doesn't seem like the Eastling cavalry is actually going. Now, these are actually the Dunland horses are even going into the battle line. I imagine they were trying to hit this section of the battle, but they are going to be scared off by the horses and the rest of the Dalian cavalry regiments. And you can see all of this arrow fire going in and just dismembering the warlording, pillaging horses of Dunland right now. That is unfortunate. As you can see, big gaps are now starting to appear in the front line. The cavalry is going to feint for the forces of Dunland, looking to try and catch my crossbows off guard. All the arrow fire is also hammering away on my Erebor axe warriors who have their backs turned. I quickly go ahead and turn around and try and deal with that. My own cavalry is going to come forward and try and cause some harassment, but obviously the Dunland player is not a fool. He is going to be focusing down these horses with arrow fire, and my cavalry force is already pretty minimal. They're going to go flying in there, hitting into their ranks, doing some pretty decent damage, but I just don't have the numbers to really take this out. I do, however, continue to break more and more of a front line. Obviously, my own Erebor axe line is doing a pretty good job in the center, and I'm causing some disruption over on this side of the battlefield. And there you go, the Eastling general has gone, which is basically the end for his flank. I don't really see them coming back from this. You can see now it's just a matter of time of whether or not we can get this force around that has been victorious, to hook around the battlefield and come in. We can also take a look of the overall battle. You can see that they have done a great job over on this left-hand side of kind of doing what we did to them. It's just we've broken them a little bit sooner. So now the race is really going to be who can finish up their flank and get to the center, and whose center can hold. Luckily, I am very blessed to be using these Erebor Axe Warriors, who are known to be a strong foe indeed. They're trained warriors. And even against the Urukai medium infantry, they still hold their own for some time. And obviously with the commitment as well, you can see that my unit of Erebor Spear Guard are holding off Uruk Throng left, right and centre, with the support of more cavalry from the forces of Gondor. Swan Knights in there, moving around and getting engaged. Again, a force just to keep these guys at bay for as long as possible. You do have more, obviously, Uruk pikemen as well as just a whole range of other infantry moving around. And I think they can quite easily start to come through these gaps if they need to. But more reinforcements are on the way. You can see that the Dale player, with the support of what remains of the Dwarves, are also forming up pretty bravely. My center, however, there is infantry slipping through, and as you can see, units are roaming around and we're having to go on full skirmish mode. Our allies' general, the Gondorian general, has now broken, and you can see his last stand truly happening right now in the forest. We have Gondorian swordsmen fighting back to back against the orcs of Mordor, just looking to make their stand, because the battle is not lost. Even though this flank is over, the balance of power is still very, very even, so this could still be anyone's battle. But yeah, the Citadel Guard are completely enveloped here by orcs left, right, and center. So it's just kind of a game that they just need to hold out for as long as possible. As well as that, obviously our general is, you know, under pretty heavy pressure, and they're just going to be fighting it. As soon as this kind of unit breaks, there's going to be a flood of infantry through this gate and onto the rest of our formation. And you can see the weight of numbers clashing against my front line is starting to take its toll. However, we've managed to strike a pretty deadly blow on our opponent right here, which is going to free up a lot of soldiers, and obviously with the Dale infantry coming in, that is going to be great. We're obviously using all of our crossbows as best as we can to bring down these Blood Avengers and other units that are chasing through the front line. I've definitely found in these type of battles that even if there is a gap appearing in the battle lines, you normally don't want to exploit it unless you can send more men in. There you go, my general going down. But he put up a brave fight there in the center, and luckily he still actually managed to rout a few units as well. But luckily, with the support, you know, of the Dwarves being as good as they are, they can tend to like hold their ground. I think a lot of them do have the discipline trait, which means their morale doesn't get affected if their general dies. And we've also managed to engage quite nicely against the Dunland and the Isengard general as well in this engagement. But then White Hand Stormers are going to be a hard unit to break. The rest of our forces now are turning up, and we are cleaning up pretty heavily on the right hand side. You can see a lot more men clashing in. We're just kind of cutting off these last kind of pockets of resistance, which are going to be great for Berserkers though, looking to rack up as many kills. Oh, that guy gets, look, did you see that animation? Go back right now and check out that animation. That was insane. He like jumped, and I've seen it before, but I didn't see him swinging before. He like jumped at the spear guard, and the spear guard just like held him in place. I'll stick a replay whilst I mean, you would have just saw it, but that was insane. That was crazy. I've never seen like the unit like actually swing back and forth. Oh my god, that was insane. That was such a cool animation. That really was. But as you can see, more and more of the forces, my crossbowmen are having to be committed now to this fight, because I just don't have anything left really to hold the formation together at all. It's just kind of crossbowmen shooting away from multiple directions and hitting the soldiers as they come in. We do have reinforcements that are arriving pretty quickly. A nice thing we do have on our side is the fact that the morale for our units are going to be higher, so we can hopefully cause an army rout in our opponents. And even my thin lines of dwarves are still fighting bravely. You can see, like, I mean, that battle line looks alive right now. Everyone is just going at it. Movement is, you know, fierce. As the forces of Mordor come out of the forest and look to get stuck in with more and more units coming in. But as you can see, Dale has arrived, and that's going to clean up this entire position very, very nicely. Indeed, we got more engagements as my crossbows are fighting and standing up pretty well against the Uruk Throng, honestly. And more units being thrown into the fight. I'm getting my fresher unit, I'd say, of arrow crossbowmen in against the Isengard general. Crossbows going in, the crossbows just devastating this unit of Uruk pikes. They can't even form up correctly. Every volley coming in and taking down, you know, 20 odd Uruks, and when you only have 60 units left in that battalion, that's not going to be good. Are they going to be able to get another volley off before going down? I'm not too sure. I think they don't, but then they can obviously quickly, you know, surround this unit of pretty tightly packed Uruk pikes. That does look very cool though. It does look very cool indeed. But yeah, I'm just going to pull back my pikemen and continue to chase down more men. And now we have the rest of Dale coming in. And the battle's looking very good for us. Even though we've lost in the forest, you know, with Dale and the rest of the units turning up, I think the battle is very much in our favor. And you guys will see a pretty big rout going on in a second from the forces of Mordor. Honestly, when we were playing, we were kind of surprised. Just kind of the battle was just over and everyone was like, whoa, what happened? But it was like, there was just a huge rout by the forces of Mordor, which was very surprising, honestly, because there is still a fair amount of them left. Like, the battle is won on our side of things, but yeah, you'll see as the time runs out, you might be like, oh, there's not enough time to end this battle, but yeah, there was just a huge rout. I think maybe a general got killed, and then just everything routed on the forces of evil. Maybe it was a bug or something we experienced, but it was just, yeah, a big break in the enemy formation, and we were super surprised, but it was still an epic battle, so I was like, I'll still show it, even though there was kind of an anticlimactic ending with a huge rout. I'll still show the battle, because we had some really cool moments. I feel like there was some really nice strategy on the flanks, and yeah, there was a lot of big brawls and engagements as the forces of evil clashed against the forces of good. And obviously it was a 4v4 as well. You don't often get to see many 4v4s, but I feel like the battle, you know, even at this point was pretty obvious he was going to come out on top. You can see it's his Pyrrhic victory because, yeah, everything just broke. It was weird. But yeah, with Dale turning up, I think the battle was pretty obviously in our favor. And you can take a look. So a big shout out to everyone who played in this battle. I really appreciate it. So let's take a look at kills really quickly. So obviously the Dwarven forces, my generals and Grimhammer's doing pretty nice. Over in the forest, you can see the Citadel Guard doing a admirable job holding back the enemy forces. Lolwat's Grimhammers again. TZN's forces, his cavalry coming in and racking up a decent amount of kills. Over on the forces of Dunland, you can see that, yeah, 124 kills on these Blood Avengers. Pretty juicy indeed. The Isling forces front line, even though he got battered, still did very nicely. Mordor, we have the Southern Lancers with over 200 kills. And then finally, Darling's forces of Isengard. You can see his crossbows and his infantry doing a pretty juicy job indeed. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that battle. I do apologize that it was maybe a little bit anticlimactic towards the end, but hopefully you enjoyed it nonetheless. If you want to see more 4v4 battles, do let me know in the comments down below, and obviously by dropping a like if you want to see more Rise of Mordor. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one.